Hi everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. If you don't know me, my name's Courtney or Court. I'm an illustrator slash author slash artist person in Maine. Went to school for it, graduated in 2022 with a degree in illustration. So some could say, hypothetically, that I know what I'm doing a little bit. I'm still technically an emerging artist, but I do have some experience with doing illustration on a professional level. And so today I'm here to spread some little bits of wisdom to you about what being, like, I don't know, basically, okay, there's 3 parts of this video. It's going to be the main ways that I personally right now am making money, and then going into detail about some of the gigs I've gotten and like how those came about, and then tips if you don't know what you're doing or like want to kind of start making money off of your art in like the specific context that I do, and you just don't know where to start. I guess first and foremost, this is a promise from me to you that I'm not going to become a channel where I only talk about the business side of art. I say this very politely and not a personal attack to anybody, because it's not just like one person, but you can kind of tell, and it's not even just art too, you can tell when someone makes their money by talking about ways to make money versus actually making money in the ways that they're talking about. Like, there's a tipping point where it becomes more profitable to talk about the business side and then actually not like use their own advice. And so I'm just saying, like, I promise I'm not going to do that unless like rent is due. Like, I'm going to very much try to make money with my art without like becoming like a finance bro. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do. Yeah, let's just get into it, I guess. So, part 1, the main ways that I personally make money. I guess kind of elephant in the room, I'm not a full-time illustrator right now. I do have a part-time job. I'm fortunate that my part-time job is art-related. I work at one of those places where you can like order wine and then paint pictures of mountains. I'm not gonna say where I work, you know, obviously that's personal, but it's one of those places. And so yeah, that has been very helpful actually, because I don't have to worry as much about art paying my bills. You know, nothing wrong with having a part or full-time job and doing art on the side. I always like to say that because I feel like, especially people coming out of like art school or high school, like they put so much pressure on themselves to immediately be successful when that's just like that's not really how it works. You'll be fine. So yeah, I do have a part-time job. I would say that is the majority of my money right now. That wasn't always the case, but that's the way it is right now. And then I don't really have the other ones in order of like most to least amount of money because it fluctuates every month, but I do have an itch.io, an itch.io page. You know, it's kind of like underrated for illustrators and artists because it's a great place to host PDFs and other like just like intangible digital items basically. So like right now I have my comic signals on there, I have my brush pack for Procreate, and I have a sketchbook scan. And, you know, there are other services that you can use beyond itch.io. Like, you know, Gumroad was popular, but I think the creator did something bad. I remember people were talking about it, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm not using Gumroad. You can also do it on Ko-fi. I've done that before, and it's like fine. Like, it works. But I like itch.io because you can browse and like check out other people's work really easily, which therefore means that you can other people can find your work easily. So yeah, I have itch.io, and that's been very helpful. I didn't anticipate like how much I would be enjoying like putting stuff on there and seeing stuff on there, but also like the income from it has been helpful. Yeah, I guess like again, it depends like month to month, the numbers. That's why I'm not really like giving you a monetary amount of how much I make from each of these things. It really fluctuates. Like I'm not like withholding information. If you like DM me on Instagram, you're like, hey, how much you make from Itch.io this month? I could tell you, but like for the sake of simplicity, I'm not giving numbers because it very much varies. So after Itch.io, I do have an imprint shop. Imprint is like a service like Redbubble or Society6 where you can upload art and they handle the manufacturing and shipping, so you don't have to worry about any of that. I gravitate toward imprint because the payouts for artists are better in terms of per print. Like if you were to sell a print on Redbubble, you'd get like $1 or $2 versus if you sell a $20 print on imprint, you get 10, which like you can see like that's a big difference. There are some I'm not as in love with imprint as I once was. I think the amount of time you have to wait to get paid really kind of sucks. I just had to email customer service today because like it takes 7 to 10 business days, but it's been 14 business days and I have not gotten my measly $120, so that's a little weird. And also like they've been doing sales all the time and it's like, okay, if there's sales all the time, I don't know, I just think that's a little like iffy. I personally think I'm going to try to run my own online shop again because I did do that. I had an Etsy from like 2019 to 2022. I don't think I'm going to go back to Etsy because of the, like, I don't know, I don't like the way that they run things over there. But, like, imprint is nice because you don't have to handle the manufacturing, but there's pros and cons. Then I do also have a Patreon. Meant to talk about it earlier in the video, but the footage that you're seeing right now is me making the postcard for June. I have basically 2 tiers on my Patreon, technically 3 because I have like a early bird version of the first tier that's like $1 cheaper, but I have a tier where basically you get to see art early, you get to see videos early. I post sketches there that I don't post anywhere else. I also just try to be more like candid on there. I tend to talk more about my work on there versus other social media just because, like, I don't know, I feel like social media doesn't value like long captions and stuff. That's subjective, but it's whatever. And then I have a postcard club. So along with the other benefits, you actually get something physical in the mail each month. This month, it's my OCs in like the Vocaloid magnet headphones. Yeah, it's my birthday this month and also it's Pride Month, so join. Ooh, you want to join so bad. You want to get this postcard so bad. But anyway, yeah, I do have a Patreon. It's been like a slow process, you know. I think whenever, like, you know, in my heart, like when I thought about it, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start it and then I'm immediately gonna like make like $2,000 a month and then I'm not gonna have to worry about anything ever again. And I'm not there yet, which is like fine. I maintain around like $200 a month on Patreon. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Yeah, it's been, I started in December, I think. Yeah, I started in December. And so this is month 7. Yeah, month 7. Yep. Yeah, I just had to like count on my wall because I have all my postcards up. But yeah, I've really enjoyed having a Patreon. It's nice to like have a spot to just like throw everything because it makes it easier to wait on posting other things. Like I'm very much a person where it's like I finish a piece of art, I want to post it immediately, but like I don't know, I feel like that's not super healthy because like it doesn't make me like appreciate the work that I put into the stuff I make. So it's nice to have a zone that I can put things and then I can wait and post it elsewhere. And then lastly, and this is the one that's most variable from month to month. I do freelance / commission work. The distinction that I'm making there between freelance and commission is that when I'm talking about freelance, it's usually like for an entity, like a band or a company or that sort of thing. And I'm using commission work for more personal one-on-one stuff, like someone wants me to draw them and their partner because it's their anniversary, or someone commissioning me to draw their characters. Like, that's sort of the distinction I'm making. The process is generally the same. You're still working for a client, and you're making art for that client, but there's also usually different like use cases with freelance work. Like, you want to ask like, how long are you going to be using it? Is it going to be on merchandise? Like, do you want all the rights to it, or do I own the rights? Like, there's more involved with that versus like personal commissions. And this varies month to month as well. So sometimes I do more, sometimes I do less. I find that commissions kind of burn me out really quickly compared to other art. And so I tend to go through phases where I do a bunch and then I'm so burnt out I can't do any, which, you know, not the best, but that's just how it is right now. Okay, and so now I'm going to talk more concretely about some specific gigs that I have done. These are in a loose chronological order. They're not really that chronological, but yeah, obviously there's some stuff I like won't disclose, like the exact dollar amount I got, or like my point of contact, like just not even because I signed an NDA or anything, but just to be courteous, you know. If you are like an illustrator and you really want to know, like, you can DM me and we could talk numbers privately, but it's just one of those like business things where it's like, it's not great to talk about. Like, you could talk about like the money without talking about the person, but once you start talking about like who it was for, then it's a little uncouth to talk about the specific dollar amount. Again, not trying to gatekeep, just like trying to, you know, be professional as much as I can be. So I've drawn a lot of fan art, period. I've drawn a lot of fan art. For a while, my main bread and butter was musicians, because that's just like what I was into. And so my favorite musician for a while was John Bellion, who is a singer and producer. He's more of a producer now. He like wrote the whole new Jonas Brothers album. But I drew a lot of him. And so he would like it and share it on his story, which was really cool. It wasn't like an insidious plot. I wasn't trying to like use him to gain followers or like get jobs or anything. You shouldn't approach any sort of like art in that transactional way. Not very healthy, but that is just kind of what happened. And so musicians who followed him would see that and then contact me for album covers of their own, which was really cool. And so I have forged like multiple relationships with musicians just through doing fan art, because they saw the work that I did and they were like, hey, would you do it for me? And, you know, the conversation is always like, yeah, how much? And so yeah, that was kind of like my first real foray into like quote unquote professional work. I had done a couple personal commissions, but like doing the album covers was like the first step. And so if you look, I'll leave a link to my website in the description. I'm kind of going through the stuff that's on my client work page of my website, just so you can kind of like, if you want to follow along, if you want to see. But yeah, I've been doing those for several years now. It's been nice, especially like working with the same people over and over again, like kind of forging those relationships, and like, you know, it's fun to kind of be the one in charge of like their look. Like it's a cool privilege to have. And speaking of that, I guess like a big ol' like asterisk to keep in mind as I go through these is that I am a bit in a privileged position just because I do have following on social media. Like I do have like, you know, obviously it's not like the biggest following ever, but it would be wrong to not mention the fact that like I do have like 60,000 followers on Instagram and more followers elsewhere. So a lot of these things did kind of come about just because people saw me on social media. So yeah, I just want to mention that so that that's on the record. Anyway, so yeah, I drew John Bellion a lot just because I wanted to and I enjoyed doing it. And then eventually, this was in November of 2020, he had followed me back beforehand, like the year before. And like also he like used my art as like his social media profile image for a while, which is cool. But one day, randomly, his manager followed me back on Instagram and then DM'd me and he was like, hey, what's your phone number? I have something I want to discuss with you. And so of course I was like geeking out. And basically John Bellion did a virtual concert and they were looking for someone to do the poster, and so they reached out to me and they were like, hey, do you want to do the poster? We need it in a week. And I was like, yeah, sure, I guess. I mean, no, I was very excited about it. The only hesitation was like because of other timing things, because I was still in school. But yeah, I ended up doing the poster for that, and they used it for like social media promotion and stuff, which was, it was awesome. It was like a dream come true. You know, I look back on it now, obviously, and there's stuff I wish I could change about how I did it, but yeah, that was the first one where I was like, wow, maybe I could actually make it. Not to say that I thought I couldn't make it as like a professional illustrator, but that one, it felt really cool. It felt like, you know, it solidified that like, okay, I'm on the right path. And then the next one I want to talk about is, okay, so I did a little like editorial piece for an indie poetry publisher, Engendered Lit. Basically, again, a similar pattern. I draw a lot of Orville Peck, the country musician, and basically someone who worked there saw one of the pieces of fan art I did and reached out because they had a poem coming out that was about Orville Peck, and they wanted, basically they're just like, draw whatever you want, we'll pay you. And I was like, hell yeah, like love stuff like that. And so that was a really fun one. Again, that one was through Twitter, specifically. The John Bellion one was more Instagram, I think. And so yeah, I ended up doing a commission for them. Hi, editing Courtney here. I realized I forgot to talk about one, which was the piece that I did for this trans horror comic anthology, Crossing the Threshold. Basically, I found it on Twitter that they were looking for people, and I applied for it, and I got it, and it was cool. They're cool people. Anyway, that one wasn't a very exciting story, but it's on my client page, and so I wanted to mention it. Okay, back to the video. And then more recently, I've done a lot of licensing. So when I say that, it's mainly like I have already made a piece of work and then someone reaches out and asks, usually it's for like either advertising or actual merchandise. They ask if they can license the work you already made to be put in a specific context. And so the first one I did, I drew fan art of Germa985, the streamer, and I posted it on Reddit, and because it was for the Dollhouse stream that he did back in 2021, and the production manager of the stream saw it on Reddit and DM'd me on Reddit and asked like, hey, we want to make posters, like, would you be willing to kind of change the like fan art that you did so it fits into a 24 by 36 poster so we could sell it? And I was like, yeah, that'd be fun. So I ended up doing that, and it was kind of more work than I was anticipating because the actual artwork was small, so I had to upscale it, and I had to redo some of the like line. Actually, no, I didn't have to redo the line work. I had to redo the like textures and the colors just so that everything kind of fit. But yeah, that was awesome. The poster's like huge. It was really cool seeing my artwork that I made on my small little iPad come out that big. So yeah, that was fun. And then this year, I licensed a reel to True Grit Texture Supply, which, if you follow me, you know I freely talk about their products a lot just because I use them. I think they're great. And I made a reel talking about like the paper texture that I use, and they reached out. They were like, "Hey, can we license this?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so yeah, you might get reels with my silly little voice talking about the paper texture I use, which is funny. And then most recently, kind of very similar to the John Bellion situation, I've been drawing Orville Peck, and a person who works at the merch company that Orville uses DM'd me on Instagram and was like, "Hey, we saw your Orville Peck illustration. We wanted to license it for a t-shirt. Is that something that you would do?" And immediately I was like, "Yeah, of course it's something I would do." And so we talked, and I had to like kind of edit the file a little bit just so it was easier to print, and then I sent it off, and now you can get it on a t-shirt like right now. Oh, I have another one that we could talk about too, actually, speaking of t-shirts. But yeah, it was very cool because like he is probably my favorite musician right now, and so to see the shirts at his shows, people like sent me pictures of it as soon as they saw it, and I was like, oh my god. I still haven't seen it in person yet. I'm seeing him on the 20th in New York City, so you bet I'm taking a selfie with the merch booth. But he also like posed in it. He like posted 3 pictures of him modeling the shirt, which is fucking crazy. And he also followed me back on Instagram, which was cool. But yeah, so that just came about because I drew him and he saw it, and like, you know, it's always like that. It's like a lot of jobs, at least ones that I've done, are like you do something you're already doing and then someone notices, and then like another person notices. Like it's just like the right eyes hitting it at the right time. And then talking about the Orville t-shirt reminded me about the other t-shirt that I did, which was through a local small business named Laquat Shop. I know people who work there, and so they like to do like t-shirts of the week, and I used one of my Patreon illustrations for a t-shirt there, which was also really cool. I haven't gotten paid for it yet, but it's because it's still for sale, so I'm not sure exactly how successful it's been. I want to DM, be like, hey, how many, just curious, how many have sold? But yeah, so all of that is to say that is my personal, very limited scope experience with the jobs that I've done thus far. I think it's very important to say that this is not the only way to success. Like, you do not have to do any of what I've done. Like, you don't have to have a big social media following. You don't have to do that to be successful as a professional illustrator. That's just how it's happened for me, and so I can only speak to my own experience, but it is I very much recommend listening to other artists talk about these sort of topics, just so you can learn from everybody. And so to finish off, I have some tips for you for just general good practice things. If this video does well, / if a lot of people have questions, I'm totally willing to keep talking about this. This is like a general art and business 101. We can do a 102, a 201, more classes as we go on. So these are kind of on the macro scale, and then I could give more specific advice about other things later. So first tip, and this, I don't know how much of this is tip and more of just like a life advice thing, but it's okay if you don't want to make art your job. I think we are kind of skewed to think that unless we are like our art is our sole income, then we're not real artists, or like our work means less. But that's just like not true. Like, fuck that. You don't have to, if you really like, because when you make your art your job, it does alter the way that you view art making, and it does alter the way that like, it just alters what art means to you in your day-to-day life. And so if the thought of having to kind of monetize this thing that you have in your life, especially like if you use it for like therapeutic purposes, if art is really something that like means a lot to you and centers you and like gives you peace, then you really might not want to make it your job. And also if you just do it to have fun, like, it does take a little bit of the fun out of it when you have to worry about how it looks to other people. And so, nothing wrong with getting a part-time, full-time job. Doesn't even have to be art related. Like, fuck it, get an associate's degree in computer science and then do that and do art on the side. And like, you're still an artist. Like, I want to reiterate that because I think, especially on social media, you get a very limited view of like what success looks like. And so, yeah, just wanted to say that. But for actual tips, first one, have a portfolio. I want to make a video about good practices for portfolio websites because I think it's something that, I recently not recently, but back in like January, I updated my website, and I thought about it for a long time, just like going through other artists' websites and seeing what I liked and what I didn't. And so, having some sort of way for A, people to see your work, and B, for people to contact you, most important thing. Like, people are not going to hire you if they can't see your work and they can't talk to you. So having something, it doesn't have to be a Squarespace website. It can be a card, it can be a Google site, it can be a NeoCity site that you code on your own. Like, it really doesn't have to be anything crazy, but it just has to exist, okay? You need something. And social media is okay, but like having a solo website is even better. And then in terms of if you haven't really made the jump to trying to be a professional yet, something that's good to think about is, do you want to serve a client or do you want to serve a customer? I think recently noticed a lot of, like, I think generally in the art space, people have gravitated toward serving a customer, which has its pros and cons, If you basically become your own business and start making merchandise and like that sort of thing from your work, it's great because for the most part, you can make whatever you want. So you don't have someone telling you what you have to make, what you can't make. It's really a way for you to, be your own boss and make your own work, which is great. However, there is also, it's not completely your own practice, because you have to start thinking about, okay, will people buy this? And that sort of thinking can really skew the type of art you make and like skew what you might be wanting to get out of your art. So there's that side, the like freelance, be your own boss, merchandising side. And then there's also the client side. So this is like freelance work. If you want to be traditionally published, I would also include this in that, because you will have, publishers. Publishers will be your client, and so you have to impress the right people. And again, there's pros and cons. I think generally, with clients, their pockets are a little bit deeper, so you'll get paid more than if you are just making like merchandise. But there's also probably fewer of them compared to customers. So there's more customers who can pay less versus less clients who can pay more. And also, the client will want to probably be more involved with the art that you're making. So you might have to really kind of bend to their will and not really draw what you want, but draw what the client wants, which some people enjoy. I even enjoy it from time to time. I think it can be kind of fun to problem solve and cater to what your client wants and that sort of collaborative process if, the client is nice or whatever. But yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Do you want to work with clients or do you want to work with customers? Like, that's kind of like generally the two paths you can go down. And obviously those two can intersect and you could do both, but one or the other is like, generally that's how all jobs can be sort of boiled down to. If you want to work with clients, something that's important is to follow other artists and then see who they are interacting with. So a lot of time I'll use editorial illustration as an example. I follow several editorial illustrators, and so they'll post work that they've done, and then they will shout out the art director that they worked with, or if they have an agent, they'll shout out their agent. And so you want to pay attention to those things because the art directors and the creative directors are the people that you want your work to be seen by. That's who you're trying to target because they're the ones who are hiring illustrators. So once you find that contact information, then you have to start cold emailing. This is something that I need to get better at, and I'm going to try to get better at, because you really kind of have to just swallow your own ego and just be like, hey, here's my work, please hire me. And most of the time you probably won't hear anything back, which, it is what it is. That's just part of the job. But yeah, cold emailing, specifically looking for art directors. If you don't have a LinkedIn, it might be good to get a LinkedIn because you can kind of see connections that way as well. If you would rather sort of do the social media, merchandising, being your own boss route, something important is to start small. So I think this is just good art, life advice, I guess, but you can build your way up to being this massive, empire of all this sorts of merchandise. But for starters, maybe you'll only have a product or two. Don't, you have to think about, it's just more sustainable when you start small and then build your way up, because if you start really big and then no one buys your stuff, then you're in the hole hundreds of dollars, versus if you get some postcards and sell them, you can get a pack of postcards for $25. So the cost is different, right? And so don't try to build the city of Rome in one day or whatever. Just start small, start with a couple things, and then you can kind of build your way up to having more things, more quantities of things. Also, be a nice person. I think that, underrated advice. But I think generally it's just good to be a nice person. Be professional. Don't be weird when talking to people. Obviously that's very nebulous, but people talk to each other, and, there are going to be times where you might have friends who are also illustrators and they can't take on a client, and so they need someone else to recommend the client, hey, I can't do this right now, but I got a friend who can. And so being nice to the people around you will kind of help you get opportunities like that. And so people talk, so, just be nice. Smiley face, just be nice. And then another important thing is to diversify your income. I sound like such a finance podcast guy with that, but it's true. You could see just from the way that I was talking about my own, the ways that I make money, you should not put all your eggs into one basket. It's just not sustainable. It's not going to work. you just can't predict what will be popular one month and not popular the next month. And so if you have a lot of little things that you're putting stuff into, then when one thing doesn't do as well one month, you're not going to be screwed. Versus like if you put all your eggs into one basket and then one month the basket breaks, then you're not going to have any eggs, and that's just not good. So having a lot of things going on helps to lower the randomness of where your income is coming from one month to the next. I'm even still working on this. Like, I'm trying to get monetized on YouTube, which if you're watching this far, thank you. You're helping with that because I need the watch hours. And I also want to open an online shop again. And, there was like a year or two where I was getting paid by Instagram to make reels because they had a reel bonus program, which was awesome. But now they don't have it anymore. So I had to find other ways to make that money. I mean, it was only like $100 a month, but that's still $100 a month that I'm not getting anymore. So fuck you, Instagram. Just kidding. But yeah. And lastly, put yourself out there. You really have to just put your work in front of people. If you want people to buy your things and they don't know you or your things exist, then they're not going to be able to buy them. And if you want to get hired by, I don't know, Netflix as like a color assistant or whatever, like, you gotta put yourself out there, and like, you might fall on your face sometimes, and that's okay. Like, that's just part of it. I think I struggle with this too. Like, social media is one thing. Like, I've been doing it for a while now, so I feel comfortable with just posting on social media, but like actually reaching out to people is really hard for me. And so sometimes you kind of have to make yourself uncomfortable. You have to just put yourself in an uncomfortable situation if you want to get something out of the interaction. Like, you have to be active instead of passive. Recently I've been kind of passive, and so I personally need to be more active. So yeah, you just gotta put your work out there. It's gonna feel awkward. It probably will feel awkward, but there's kind of an understanding, especially if you're cold emailing like art directors and stuff. Like, that's just kind of their job, right? Like, their job is to look for illustrators. So you might feel really awkward being like, here's my work, but like, to them it's just like a normal email. So I hope this was helpful. I don't know if it actually was. I feel like I just said so many words in so much time, but I hope if you are looking into like going into illustration, that this sort of look into it was at least a little bit helpful. Like I said before, I can make a part 2 answering more specific questions and going into more specific advice if that's something people are interested in. But yeah, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Reminder to join my Patreon, because if you don't, not only are you gonna make me sad on my birthday, but it's also homophobic because it's Pride Month. Just kidding, but it would be helpful. Yeah, you can follow me everywhere at cryptozoology, except for on Tumblr. I'm one term on there, don't worry about it. And do all the YouTube things, like, comment, and subscribe. Watch my older videos so I can get monetized, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.